Euromaxx Highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hello there and welcome to our Highlights edition. And before we look at some street art with a feminine touch, let's have a quick tour of what else is lined up in today's show. Northern Exposure, Norway's Traena Music Festival, is a one-of-a-kind experience. Sentimental journey crossing the Alps at the Silvretta Classic rally. And open art, Cornelia Conrads displays her installations in scenic surroundings. But we start off with Alicia Pasquini of Italy, who's an illustrator, a set designer and a painter. But she's made her real international mark, quite literally, on the streets with her graffiti work. Just stroll around some of the more notable cities in Europe and you'll see that her artwork is hard to miss. However, her message is different from the angry, often cynical slant that you see in much of street art. And hers often shows portraits of women and their more vulnerable sides.
Italian artist Alicia Pasquini often has just a few minutes to start and complete her work. Doors and the sides of houses serve as her canvas. Her gallery, the streets of Madrid, and Marrakesh, and Berlin, Paris, London, and of course Rome.
What I love is the freedom I have, of course. And the freedom I'm taking, because it's not something that's given to you. So for me, it's been, personally speaking, a way to go over certain limits. Limits of the studio, when you're alone, limits of my art, because I was working and working on a piece until I was not happy completely. When you are in the street, the extemporaneity of the painting is popping up. That means that in 5 minutes you have to leave something beautiful behind you.
Alicia was born in Rome and studied art both in Europe and Australia. Her passion for street art blossomed during a relationship with a French graphic artist. For the past 3 years, she's done street art all over the world. The dominant theme of her work is her home city of Rome.
My colorway on murals and on paper anyway, it's always with a lot of salmon. That is really the color of the building of Rome. And it's always in constant contrast with a cold color like blue. And that's, I think, is coming from the sky. So that's contrast in between the color of the city and the sky that's been influencing me a lot. So I try to bring this everywhere I go.
And Alicia takes her sketchbook everywhere she goes. Whenever time allows, she'll sit and observe the world around her. Transient moments are documented in her sketches, which may later serve as a template for her work.
I'm especially interested about people and their relationship. I'm interested in, I would say, moments of life that in some way are universal. That means that are meaning something to us today, but were meaning something in the past and possibly will mean something in the future.
Her base remains in Rome. She rents a small studio in the artist's quarter of San Lorenzo. Here she paints on paper, wood, and other materials. This way she can exhibit her art in galleries. Her works sell for up to 1,500 euros each. The 31-year-old also regularly illustrates comics or produces images for advertising campaigns, such as for a car manufacturer or for a sports brand.
I do that kind of job now to finance my travel, my trip, and my paint. So it's my way to give back to the people because I cannot live off nothing. So of course I have, as any artist in art history, to do commission work. But sometimes in a limit of a commission, you have to put a lot of creative, and that's good for your fantasy, you know.
People like Alicia are unusual in her line of work. First of all, she's a woman in a male-dominated scene. And secondly, she's open about what she does, despite a lot of it being illegal.
If you do something and you think it's in a certain way political and revolutionary, you have to take your responsibility. So put it your face and your name is the way to to say yourself and to the other, I'm not doing nothing wrong, and just doing something good for the city.
These days, Alicia Pasquini has quite a fan following. Many have gone around Rome photographing her works and posting them on many internet blogs for everyone to appreciate.
Well, now we make a sharp turn towards the north, and I do mean far north, because we're heading up to the Arctic Circle and to a very unique kind of music festival. The Traena Festival takes place in Norway on 2 remote islands in what's called the Traena archipelago. Now, that's about 1,000 kilometers north of the capital, Oslo. And the only way to get up there is to fly to Bodø, and then you can finish the trip by ferry. Well, this Arctic Circle location also means that in summertime it never gets dark, and for 10 years now Traena has been a kind of counterpoint to larger festivals like Glastonbury, and it offers 3 days of rock, pop and indie music in venues that are simply out of this world, and our reporter was the lucky guy who got to make the trip.
In many ways, this is a festival like any other. There's the big stage, a big crowd, and big-name headliners. In this case, folk crossover star Manu Chao. What does set this festival apart from all the rest are the stunning backdrops. Just getting here is part of the experience. The high-speed ferry is the quickest link to and from the mainland, and the trip takes 3 hours. Then finally, the magical horizon of Traena looms into view. Tickets for the festival sell out some 6 months before the actual event and are limited to 2,000 people. The event is also attended by 700 volunteers. But with precious little accommodation available, you basically have to bring a tent if you want to spend the night here. It's billed as the world's most remote music festival, which also makes it a huge logistical headache for the organizers.
We actually use the twice amount on boats than on the artists, just to get them here and to get to the audience. And of course, we have to get everything from the mainland, except from the fish, because that we got in the ocean, but everything else.
Traena comprises a group of islands that were first settled by humans 9,000 years ago. Its current population is 500, most of whom live off fishing. The 3-day music festival on these normally peaceful islands has been held annually here for the past 10 years. Sivert Høyem is one of the biggest stars on the contemporary Norwegian music scene. It's his 3rd time here, and it's one of his favorite dates on the festival calendar.
You know, the people who arrange this festival really, you know, they really love music. They really love to give people a good time, you know, and also it takes some effort for people, for the audience to come out here. So the people you get to play for at this festival, they're really happy to be here, you know. It's like a 5-hour boat ride from the mainland out here, and you gotta really mean it when you come here.
But it's the unique venues that have given the Traena Festival its reputation, for the performers and the fans.
Church is beautiful, really beautiful. I got a kind of shock today, because I imagined it would be a little bit, I don't know, not bigger but more churchy. This is almost like a small, it's like a big living room with an altar.
The picturesque island of Sana plays host to a concert by Norwegian singer Ingrid Olava. The concert in the cave is always a highlight of the festival.
It's the scenery, it's just the whole package. It's pretty amazing.
You're really immersed in the Norwegian mentality. It's incredibly nice here, just hanging out with other people.
Everybody's smiling, everybody is nice. Other places you can see people fighting, you can see very drunk people. It doesn't happen here. It's 2,000 people. It's a mini Woodstock festival.
Three days of festivities come to an end. Now the islands return to their usual peace and quiet until it's time for next year's festival.
And don't forget that you can find our Euromaxx highlights and much more on our website. Just go to dw.de/English/Euromaxx and happy browsing. Well, there are many things about fashion in the 1980s that could fall into the category of bad taste. And I can list just a few. Shoulder pads, carrot-like pants, permed hair perhaps. And let's not forget about those glaring neon colours. But what goes around comes around. And yes, you guessed it, neon has made a revival of its own. So here it is. The latest summer trend that has its fervent fans and, of course, its inevitable foes.
Graceful, natural, elegant. Fashion has traditionally been dominated by toned-down palettes or classic black and white. But that's all changed with the revival of neon. Those who shy away from bright colours will have to brace themselves this summer. Flamboyant, loud tones have arrived on the mass market, and the rule seems to be the more garish, the better. Fashion has been taken by storm.
Neon has exploded in the fashion world, in accessories, skirts, tops and dresses. In the same way clothes from the 1950s, 60s and 70s ended back on the runways, designers are now being inspired by the aerobics decade of the 1980s. They've given it an up-to-date look.
Is bringing back colours like these really a good idea? German designer Kilian Kerner says yes. His current collection features plenty of shrill shades.
Neon just started feeling natural. It became more, and now everything's neon.
From skirts to backpacks, everything in the studio of the Berlin-based designer has been influenced by the neon trend.
I like neon because it's so simple. There are so many loud things that hurt you. Neon is loud, but it doesn't hurt. It's simply cool. I think almost everyone associates coolness with neon.
Or is it a matter of personal taste? We took to the streets of Berlin to find out what ordinary people think of the neon trend.
Summery, beautiful, flashy, I like it.
Terrible. Glaring.
It's more something for women than men. The color's not my thing at all.
I love it, but after one season, that'll be it.
But even neon fans say you can't just wear it with anything. Strategic color combining is a must.
I would only wear neon with toned-down colors. I think it works very well with nude, perhaps with a nude-colored outfit combined with small neon accessories. Narrow neon-colored belts, neon bangles, or just a simple outfit with neon high heels.
If neon is just not your cup of tea, take comfort in the knowledge that fashion is fickle. All trends come to an end and are replaced by something completely different. Perhaps next year we'll see a revival of beige.
Not such a bad idea, really, but as we can see, beige works just about any old time. Well, let's switch gears now and get ourselves into the driver's seat of some very special wheels. We hitched a ride at the Silvretta Classic Rally, which is a major gathering on the classic car calendar here in Europe. Now, this event is less about speed and more about accurate timing and enjoying the beautiful scenery of Western Austria. And for the drivers, it's also about getting your pride and joy off the blocks and out of the garage for 3 days of real old-fashioned motoring.
It's a spectacular scene. 160 classic cars against the backdrop of the Austrian Alps. German businessman Willy Meyer and his wife Leonie are taking part in their 1949 Jaguar MK. It's their 7th time at the Silvretta Classic.
You look out and see these beautiful farmhouses. There's the natural beauty of the landscape, and then there's the quality of the cars here. There are some real choice ones here that you don't see every day, so it's really nice to have them all together.
Many of the cars crossing the Alps in the Silvretta Classic were built before World War II. The oldest vehicle is this 1914 Simplex. It pushes through the tight curves of the 2,000-meter-high pass together with this 1937 Packard, which weighs in at a massive 3 tons.
It gets tight. Sometimes you have to back up 2 or 3 times, but it's really enjoyable.
It's fun. That's why we came here. The car does very well uphill. Downhill, we have to be careful since there are no front brakes.
You have to have a feel for the car. Right now, for example, the brakes are making us veer to the right, so you have to know when you brake to veer left. Things like that are normally corrected automatically, but here you have to do it yourself. On top of that, it's fascinating to see the precision that a car like this was built with back in 1936.
Participants at the Silvretta Classic have to complete stages of the route in a specified amount of time. Before each stage, passenger Leonie Meyer studies the road. Armed with a stopwatch and odometer, she then tells the driver exactly how to reach the destination.
You do that for 3 days, 300 kilometers up to this point. But I have fun doing it, and he has a blast. All the drivers love it. Should I tell them the saying? It goes, the brains sit on the right side of a left-hand drive car.
But even the most experienced pros can make navigation mistakes. Still, the beautiful view easily compensates for such detours.
It's not about the highest speed here, nor is it a contest. The goal is to exercise precision coupled with skill and a bit of entertainment.
In the alpine guest houses of Tirol and Vorarlberg, the rally participants gather their strength for the next stage. And they pass the time discussing the idiosyncrasies of their precious vehicles.
You get to know a lot of people after doing so many rallies, and that's part of what makes it so much fun and why people come back.
Small festivals are organized in the towns along the route. And after around 550 kilometers on day 3, Willy Meyer happily comes in 38th place, crossing the finish line in the village of Van Duns.
The drive was beautiful. What do you take home with you? Maybe a sunburn? No, just a good time and a validation for the car that it held up so well, that all the work you put into it paid off. You have to know a car like this and be confident it'll pull through.
After crossing the finish line, all the participants feel like winners. And everyone agrees that they'll be back next year for the 2013 Silvretta Classic Rally.
And finally, to an artist with a very special way of making her statement. Germany's Cornelia Conrads initially studied philosophy, but she's now best known for what she calls her site-specific artworks. Now, her sculptures have been placed all over the world by now and most often remain there to blend in with the surrounding countryside. Well, to top it off, she often works with natural materials, which means you often have to look twice to realise there's anything constructed there at all.
A gate made of branches that seem to float. A snowball fight that looks like a snapshot captured in space and time. These artworks, which appear weightless, are held together with strings and wires. Cornelia Conrads has just finished her latest project. It's called Bowl. The installation is in Montauban, Buzenor in southern Belgium, and it's now on permanent exhibition there. Konrads has placed her bowl in the middle of a lake. An internal metal framework supports the work. The oversized bowl is 2.5 meters tall and just under 6 meters wide. That's not unusual for Konrads.
I like to skew dimensions. To put something out there that's so oversized that you suddenly feel tiny, or that shifts our view of what's large or small.
Before creating an object like the bowl in the lake, the artist retreats to her studio in Bad Münde in northern Germany. Here she builds small-scale models of her installations, focusing on practical considerations.
First, I have to try out a lot of technical aspects to see if it will hold up outside, to water, wind and weather. And with such a major work, I like to test all the possibilities until I know I've found exactly the right material.
In addition to large installations, Cornelia Conrads also makes smaller pieces. Konrads originally studied philosophy. Then in the late 1990s, she decided to switch to the visual arts full-time. In her book objects, she grapples with her academic past.
I'm still fascinated by philosophy. I'm interested in it, but it's always limited to speech. That's one reason why at some point art took over and became more interesting for me.
Konrads dislikes having the pastoral-sounding term land art applied to her work. But it's the sculptures in the countryside that brought her international success. They can be seen all over the world.
I've noticed that installations that really have to do with a place, that were conceived for a particular place, are attracting greater interest. Maybe because they make people deal with their own surroundings in a different way.
For her project Bowl, Konrads had to make a series of precise calculations to ensure that everything would fit on site and she would have enough material. Alain Schmitz, who brought the artist and her project to Belgium for his exhibition, followed the ups and downs of the creative process firsthand.
Cornelia really hasn't had it easy. Bowl is a very special artwork in unusual surroundings, in the water. Turning the idea into a reality was quite an adventure, and I don't mean just an artistic adventure, but a personal one.
Konrads prefers to call her work site-specific art. She wants her installations to look like an organic part of the landscape, but still surprise the viewer.
When you pass by my work, you might miss it completely. I want my works to merge with their surroundings, as if they belonged there. When you suddenly see my work, you might not know what it is or where it comes from. Whether it's permanent or whether it's about to disappear.
Her bowl is now in southern Belgium, and that's where it will remain. Because, as Cornelia Conrads says, it's found a home there.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of our Euromaxx highlights. So thanks very much for joining us. And until we meet again, all the best from Berlin. Take good care and bye-bye.